I'm Doug Johnson. Thanks for visiting my exhibition, and thanks too for those visitors that have asked questions, which I'll be hoping to answer in these short series of videos. How do these paintings express transcendence? Well, if humans are able to experience transcendence at all, it's through small moments of wonder and finding a deeper connection to something which is often seen as kind of everyday. So there's the dialogue between what is sacred and what is profane, and it's often the same thing, just within a different context. And so it's my hope that these works are able to find some moments of magic, of specialness, for lack of another word, to exemplify with them. So it could be a brief moment of light or a particularly glorious sky. But ultimately, any landscape painting is a carefully selected garden. It has its frame. It is identified as being separate from other areas. And indeed, if we look at the source of the word Eden, it essentially means a walled garden. And to that end, that's what a landscape painting is. Looking at art pieces, what should we look for? Well, since I'm a painter, I would hope you'd look at how it is painted, not just what the subject matter is, but what are the things that make this unique? How is the color handled? How is light depicted? What are the brush strokes? What about this is meaningful to me? Ultimately, you'll have to make up your own mind, and that's one of the nice things about grading work and sharing it with others, is that you get those experiences reflected back to you from what others have gleaned from the work. Do you think some art is easier to relate to? If an audience cannot relate to some art, what can they do? Do you have any suggestions for them? Well, I think every human endeavor has a natural level of interest for some people. I like jazz, but I don't begin to understand the depths of music theory. I educate myself, I listen to more, I investigate, I learn, and I recognize that there are things which can take me a lifetime to unfold. There are books I've read that I haven't enjoyed, but have resonated with me, and then I've gone back to again and again and found my place with them. And I think all good art does that. How do you use color to show your feelings? Can I talk about my color palette? Well, all color is evocative. For my perspective, I look at how I'm orchestrating a composition with color. So typically I'll work with three primaries, but I don't go with your standard versions of red, yellow, and blue, but I often will go with a muted palette to begin a painting with fairly low chroma for those colors, and then I build them up and explore and expand that as I develop the piece. Essentially, color is a structure for me to organize the work, and I want your eye to move around the canvas based on color arrangements. And so, Joseph Albers was a great color theorist, and I studied with Dr. Harold Greger at ISU, who had his doctorate in color theory. And for me, color informs my work and hopefully provides not just emotional cues, but a level of sophistication that the work can explore. In the same way, music is constructed with chords, with different tonalities and different understandings, and that's the dance that a painting allows. Can I talk about my subject matter? What attracted me to these scenes? So I think that it's an artist's job to reflect their life and their existence. And for me, with landscape, I look at those places that are around me, those places I interact with. And so, I grew up detasseling. My grandfathers were farmers. I believe that there is a resonance to these experiences, both the the agricultural landscape and our park places and our city buildings, and all of those things carry an emotional weight for us, and some of it's nostalgia, certainly. But these places are alive and they're vibrant and they carry an anima, and I hope that the artwork helps express that and helps others connect to that as well. What about the size of your paintings? Well, quite simply, there are some compositions which work effectively on a small scale and others which can more reasonably expand it into a larger canvas. Personally, I like working on a larger canvas just because it allows me more interplay for my brushwork, and it fills the viewer's vision in a different way, and it has a different resonance. And that's really helpful. But if I'm trying to solve a problem, and I think every painting solves a problem, I want to be able to identify what those concerns are, and I typically would do that on a smaller scale. Sometimes I find that everything I need to say, I can say with that smaller scale. It's the difference, I think, between a short story and a novel, or poetry and prose. It all depends on what's being expressed, and sometimes you can say a whole lot with a haiku. So I'm being asked, how long does it take me to finish a painting? And in some ways it's difficult to answer, because I typically will spend several sessions on a painting. An average painting can go through the cycle and be on my canvas 10 or 15 times during the course of its life. Some paintings are pretty quick. I can do them as really more of a fully developed sketch. The White House painting, which is a smaller painting in the exhibition, probably took only about an hour. But the corn painting, the big square, mostly orange painting, that could be 50 or 60 hours to fully develop that. I work through a lot of different paintings at a time because I cycle through them, so I'm able to see them with fresh eyes and explore the best answers for those paintings without making each individual painting seem very precious for me. And that freshness allows for a more clarity of vision as I develop them. I'm from the Bloomington-Normal area. I was born at the old St. Joe's Hospital on the west side of Bloomington, and went through Normal Community and Illinois State University for my bachelor's and master's, and did my MFA at Northern Illinois University. But by and large, I've lived in McLean County my whole life, and that's certainly informed my selection of images. Funny mistakes with paintings, that's an unusual thing, because ultimately, with the way I paint, I like to have a mistake. I like to have things happen kind of as an accident to see what the answer will be. I think if you're constructing a painting and you know exactly what it's going to look like when you've started, then it's not really an artwork, it's an illustration of an idea. And while I have a general idea of where things are going to go, it's that responsiveness and improvisation which helps turn it into art and helps propel my growth as an artist. I've painted the windmills that surround the county, and that's a complication. I'll put up a couple examples of those, because they're such a topographical anomaly that making them exist within a painting where they seem not necessarily organic, but not out of place, becomes a real challenge. So it's a fun thing to include, but it's such a mammoth structure on a flat landscape that finding ways to include them in a way that doesn't seem bizarre can be a bit of a challenge. Artists that have influenced me certainly include Harold Greger and Ken Holder. Both of them taught me not only how to paint, but also how to think about painting. I'm very influenced by Jim Butler, who was one of my first drawing teachers, and James Wynn. Jim is a Chicago area artist who's an ISU graduate, and I did my studies in DeKalb for my final degree and developed a friendship with him there, and he's just an amazing artist and has been a real friend for me in my development. There's a number of other artists that have influenced me. Certainly Edward Hopper, but also the Group of Seven, which is a early Canadian group of artists. A lot of people will like the Group of Seven, and they'll talk about Tom Thompson, who was their inspiration. But A.J. Canson of that group is a phenomenal artist that I have a real affinity for. There's a long list of other artists that I like, and I'll run a list along here for you to investigate independently. What is it about landscape that draws me? And again, I've been a very serious landscape painter almost exclusively for 40 years. Not quite. But I find that landscape allows me to explore all the things that interest me. I think it's important for artists to create work that relates directly to their lives, and I can explore an emotional depth and express my relationship with my surroundings and my environment and my inner and outer life through landscape. And frankly, it's a subject matter that whether or not people invest the same understandings that I have, they feel that they can connect with the work and develop an affinity for it. So it's been a great vehicle for me, and it's continued to resonate as I continue my studio practice. Although I have done some still lifes and figurative work. Actually, my master's degree show was almost exclusively figurative work. But it's the landscape I return to again and again.